The Industrial Revolution, 1750 to 1950, by Amaya, Holden, and Dana.
The Industrial Revolution, put in simple terms, was the transition from creating goods by hand to relying on machines to produce them.
Because of this growth in industrialization, the world forever changed. But which environmental factors contributed to industrialization from 1700 to 1950?
There were 6 main environmental events that contributed to the spread of industrialization and eventually resulted in the Industrial Revolution. Proximity to waterways, urbanization, accumulation of capital, legal protection of private property, geological distribution of coal, iron, and timber, and improved agricultural productivity.
Proximity to waterways, access to rivers and canals. Britain took advantage of its rivers and used it for not only transportation, but also water-wheel energy, but it wasn't as easy. Rivers were often affected by droughts or erosion, and some were unnavigable. Many attempts were made in order to fix this, but nothing worked, so the decision of making canals came into place. Canals were a key aspect to the economy as they granted a large amount of goods to be transported more accurately and more efficiently, and allowed new markets to open up due to the location and low prices. For that reason, seaports were now able to connect to trade on land masses. Coal was now able to expand as canals allowed for the exploitation of coal to further increase. They were sold at low cost and allowed a new market to form, which made industries move towards coal fields or nearby towns. From the 1760s to the 1800s, over 100 water canals were granted for coal purposes.
Urbanization. The Industrial Revolution began in England. It began when England's textile industry was experiencing trouble producing inexpensive and rapidly growing goods in consumer markets. Items required lots of time and skill as they were assembled by hand. This included pants, shirts, socks, bedspreads, and other commodities. As the population grew and expanded, more individuals needed textile goods. By the late 18th century, a sequence of innovations were fabricated by a businessman, and most factory workers resolved numerous problems without textile production. With the scale of production increasing, the factory became a centralized location where laborers were now able to get a job and work on machines and raw materials. A bigger population in smaller cities meant that the factories could draw in large amounts of people, specifically workers, to create an immense labor force. By the late 19th century, there were thousands of workers in Europe who were living in horrendous conditions.
Accumulation of capital. Accumulation of capital is when one person or group accumulates more and more money, like in the Industrial Revolution. As the use of factories grew, the people at the top obtained more and more money. This caused the people in charge to expand and also receive more money. This in turn opened up higher job opportunities for the lower class and subsequently again created more money higher up. This was vital to the Industrial Revolution because without it, this would definitely not have grown into such a scale. And the effects of this area are definitely still seen today.
Legal protection of private property. Towards the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, Britain passed a law that allowed property and land to be reorganized. This, with a little bit of exploitation, allowed producers to take advantage of different land, and it reduced some risk of capital.
Geological distribution of coal, iron, and timber. Coal, iron, and timber were resources that were frequently used in buildings, and thus were highly important to the Industrial Revolution. Thankfully, distribution of coal, iron, and timber were in locations that could be easily built around and brought for machine processing. The growth of steam engines also allowed these machines to be brought into factories, which allowed the factories to stay in urban areas. which turned into the increase of population and led to the massive increase in factory jobs. This also meant that generally the whole family would be working in factories, and this was a big factor that led to child labor.
Improved agricultural productivity. Improved agricultural productivity contributed to the Industrial Revolution in numerous ways. It established new farming techniques and machinery that made it more efficient and made it much easier for workers. It also led to the rise in food production, which supported the rise of the population in turn. This allowed for a greater workforce for the climbing industries. Soon, because of it, agricultural productivity expanded more. These raw materials were traded for different goods and promoted a growth in the economy and industrialization. Many people moved due to these advantages that allowed them new opportunities and better lifestyles.
Environmental factors played a huge role shaping the industrialization during this time period. We have already talked about how people changed the environment in this time. However, because of all the changes made, the environment also changed greatly. New mines were discovered to produce more precious metals, and forests were cut down to make way for factories and homes. The Industrial Revolution forever changed the environment and was able to grow and prosper because of it, shaping it into the world today.